Good evening. It's been quite an interesting and busy evening here, though I have to say, rather against our expectations. The volume of calls was pretty low. Things were very slow earlier on in the evening, but it's picked up and there's really quite a lot of interesting stuff to report. Sue?
Yes, our first case tonight is the murder of 52-year-old Ron Harrison, a rather sad figure whose health had seriously declined since his early retirement from the Wallington High School for Boys, where he'd been headmaster for 15 years. Early in the evening of Monday the 5th of November, Guy Fawkes night, he took a taxi to the Barclays Bank cash dispenser in Plumstead in south-east London. With him were two teenage boys.
Well, what's he been on?
He's been on tablets and drinking and all.
State of that silly bastard.
Chris Allen has been taking the calls with your colleagues. Have you any names now suggested for those two boys?
Yes, we've had a number of people phone up giving suggestions as to the identity of the two boys, that all of which have obviously will be followed up.
That's good news. We have some video of Ron at a function about 7 months before he died. You need more people to come forward who knew him in the past.
Yes, we do. Very few people who actually knew him, who might be able to give us some information, have actually come forward, and I'd appeal to them to please come forward and speak to us.
And finally, any news on those missing TV sets?
Yes, we've had some very good information on that, which I can't possibly disclose at the moment, but what I would like to re-emphasise is the fact that I'd ask people to come forward, bearing in mind, if they have these television sets, I can guarantee them immunity from prosecution.
Right. Just to recap, there were two television sets, both 14-inch screens. The first one was a Philips, and there it is on the screen with the serial number. And the second one was a Decca, also a 14-inch screen, and that's the serial number there. So if anybody has those television sets, you can guarantee that they will have...
If they came by them under rather dubious circumstances, provided it's dishonest handling, I will grant them immunity.
Chris, thank you very much.
Next, our incident desk cases, a serious assault and two murders. Let's start there with Richard Barry, who was killed, a student walking up Belsize Park at night in North London.
Yes, in November there. We've only had 9 calls, Nick, but we have had some very good information. 2 of those calls have actually talked about a blue Cortina, and we know that Richard mentioned a blue Cortina before he died. There's also another call about an incident near Paddington Railway Station, and we think British Transport Police may be able to find details of that incident that talks about 3 youths. And again, Richard talked about 3 youths before he died. Hopefully we'll get a result there.
The other murder was the death of a garage proprietor, Nick Whiting. That was a case that got quite a lot of publicity. Have you learned anything new tonight on that?
Yes, we were particularly trying to trace a Rolex watch, a Submariner watch, worth about £5,000. We've had numerous calls, over 40 to the incident room alone, giving us details of such watches being available in newspapers. Now, they can't all be good, obviously, but actually some of them do focus on a particular area that we are keeping up our sleeve at the moment.
Let's go to Belfast, Jackie. The Glen Road there was a serious assault on a young girl.
Yes.
What's happened?
Well, we've had 6 calls to the studio here and 10 calls to the incident room in Belfast, offering a number of possible identities for the video we're showing here. One was from a lady who was, in fact, attacked last year and believes this to be the same man.
Now, that could be very important.
Yes, it could well be. And another one giving very detailed information about a possible suspect. I wish I could say more. Unfortunately, I can't, but fingers crossed that we'll have good news on it next month.
Splendid. Thank you. Sue?
Well, our next appeal was for information on the murders of 2 young women, both of which took place more than 20 years ago. On Monday, October the 12th, 1970, 24-year-old Barbara Mayo left London to hitchhike up the M1 to Yorkshire. She never got there. Earlier that year, on Sunday the 8th of March, 18-year-old Jackie Ansel Lamb was dropped off near the M1. She too was hitchhiking north. Both girls were raped and strangled, and there are enough similarities between the 2 cases to suggest that both murders may have been committed by one man. Lawrence Mellor has been investigating the Jackie Ansel Lamb case. What sort of calls have you had here and to the incident room?
We've had a tremendous number of calls. I'm absolutely delighted. The incident room in Derbyshire has been inundated with telephone calls, one of which was to do with a man who was provided with a false alibi 20 years ago, and obviously we'll be looking at that and a lot of other information very closely indeed. David
Doxey on the Barbara Mayo case. Are you similarly pleased with the calls?
Yes, we've had a very good response. I did expect it to be so. A lot of callers have asked if they can have another look at the coloured poster that we have of Barbara, and in particular the elephant motif bag. And may I just remind the viewers that, of course, that bag was never ever found, is still outstanding from the scene. In addition, we've had one particular call from one man. He's rang twice, in fact. He sounds upset, and he's telling us that At that particular time, and he's suggesting it was indeed the day, Monday the 12th of October 1970, he was approached by a man in the locality between Old Hucknall Woods and Junction 29 at Heath intersection, when the other man asked him for directions to Junction 29 on the M1. Of most importance, this man was blood-stained. He had a blood-stained shirt, and he says he had cuts to his face. It's most important that this man rings us again, and I promise absolute confidentiality if he would do so.
Please do ring. This could be really vital. The number again at the Chesterfield Incident Room is 0246 220 100. That's 0246, the code for Chesterfield, 220100.
Well, now to the raid on the home of a wholesale jewel merchant in the Fish Ponds area of Bristol. 3 men pushed their way into the house while the jeweller was out and tried to force his assistant to tell them where he kept a suitcase containing his stock.
Where's the suitcase?
Tell him.
I said, where's the suitcase?
I told you, I don't know. I don't know. He must have it.
The fact is, it looked pretty dismal earlier on, Peter Coombs. Suddenly the volume of calls has stepped up. You're quite pleased now.
Yes, very pleased indeed. We've had about 60 calls here in the studio and 40 or 50 back in Bristol, and I'm absolutely delighted.
What have you learned about the identity of the 2 guys whose video fits to be shown?
Well, the first chap, in actual fact, the one with the cap, we've had several suggestions as who he might be. We're obviously researching that before we do anything, but that will be researched back in Bristol. We're currently doing that now, in effect. We're very pleased with that. A little bit disappointed about the second man, the sympathetic man. I would like viewers and callers to call in about that particular man if they know who he might be.
OK, the VW van that they used, a sort of rather rusty, battered old VW van with a very distinctive roof rack. Now, I should make it clear, you know where that van is now. You've got it.
We've got it.
But you want to know where it was in the month or so up to November the 30th?
That's right. It should be emphasised. We've had it since the 1st of December, the day after the robbery. We would like to know the history of that vehicle before the 30th.
But you've learned quite a lot about it, I gather.
Oh, yes, learned a lot about it. It's been variously cited in all sorts of places, funnily enough, trade fairs and so on, at markets, and also in the Boscombe area of Dorset.
The robbers gained access to the house by posing as delivering flowers. You've heard nothing about the flowers. Have you someone who might have bought them that day?
A little bit disappointing, because these flowers, in fact, were made up of chrysanthemums and carnations, which I would suggest is not a normal sort of mix, quite a bland mix in actual fact, and quite a cheap bunch of flowers. I would like to find if any florist can remember making up such a mixture of flowers. It could be helpful.
And if your husband, boyfriend or somebody brought you flowers like that,
they would be disappointed, I think.
Maybe not, Sue.
Well, that's it for now. We'll be back next month. Thank you if you called to help. There'll be more relevant police numbers appearing on your screen in just a moment.
Meanwhile, from all of us, actually, despite everybody's preoccupation with the news and what's been happening, as I say, it's been quite a heartening response. Whatever happens, don't have nightmares. Do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.